And we're back. This is the great classic rock debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul with zero qualifications.
And I'm Steve in a
We
hotel
talk,
room.
yes, we talk anything in a hotel room. This guy is dedicated. We talk
He is
anything and
dedicated.
everything classic rock. Anything you ever want to know about classic rock, here's probably where you don't go, but we'll still have interesting opinions. We try to keep it interesting. We try to have fun. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get right into it. So we're going to talk about concerts. And for a fellow in my age group, I saw quite a few concerts in my youth, and there are many stories I can tell. I really haven't seen any concerts in probably since the 1970s, I suppose. So I don't have much to relate as far as the more contemporary concert experience. However, I know that you guys still go to concerts regularly, semi-regularly, something. So you're going to have much more to add there than me. Does anybody want to go first as far as what was your very first concert experience and what was it like? And was it overwhelming? And
Well, I want to say this.
go ahead.
In about the mid or early 80s, Steve, you remember this? Kenny, you probably do. I think you and I may have discussed it 25 years ago. Rolling Stone magazine did an article about going to concerts, okay? And they started snooping around. I don't know if you remember this article. And after about a day, people from the mob called them up and said, "Hey, you probably want to stop, talking about this. You got to make us upset up here. You know what I'm saying?" So that happened in real life because they had, when Kenny and I, Steve, I don't know what it was called in Ohio, but down in Florida, it's called BASS, Best Available Seating Service.
Right, right.
And it was probably so dirty, but we were so honored to go see whatever. I'm not talking about the venues right now. And so, because the mob at that time controlled that business.
Right.
And then, like in Vegas, corporate America came in and said, "Look, we're going to give you $50 million." And they're like, "Okay, you can have it," right? No, much money, more money. Wall Street just blew them out of the water. So that's the thing. I was just wanted to say that happened. And now with live, at least big ticket brokers and StubHub and SeatGeek for sporting events,
Right.
it's madness because now Steve, you probably one of them. It doesn't tell you how much the fee is for the item. It says the ticket is $196, and when you go ready to buy,
Finally
yes,
check out. And
and
I believe it's StubHub because
yeah,
I had an awful experience with them recently with the Rolling Stones.
yeah, because you're ready to do this right here with your finger, like, "Ark!"
Right.
You're
Well,
like,
I've learned
what?
to check, but StubHub, I've used them before for baseball tickets. Never had a problem because there's 162 baseball games a year for every team.
Right.
So the chances of them not being able to um, procure the ticket, because I didn't realize how they actually worked, is that they're not actually in possession of the ticket. It's if they sell the ticket, then they contact the seller and then try to get the ticket in time for the game. Because what happened was I went to the Rolling Stones over the summer and spent close to $1,000 for 2 tickets. And I bought them like a month before the show off of StubHub. And they said, as soon as I bought it, said the tickets will be emailed to you a day before the event. So that was my first clue that, okay, they don't have the tickets. I used them years ago,
Wow.
and they always, it was like within an hour, I got the tickets, or, within minutes. So I was like, okay, this does not feel right. And about 2 hours before the event, still hadn't had the tickets. And I had started contacting them, and they said, yeah, they were trying to get a hold of the seller, and they were never able to get the tickets. So
Oh
they refunded
man.
my money, which of course they were going to, but it was in Denver, so I wasn't out any travel time or anything like that. But for people who may be traveling, buying hotel rooms and going out of staying overnight somewhere, I mean, that's a big risk. And so I will never use them again after that
Wow.
experience. I ended up going to the show because I had a friend who actually bought tickets, and then they also won tickets into the pit from a radio station. And so they gave me their tickets which were up in the nosebleed. So it was fine. It ended up I got to go for free anyways. So, but I only buy from, I've learned just I'll never buy from another broker unless it's the first party, not a resale site, but like Ticketmaster. They're in possession of the ticket. So, but when I was a kid, Paul, we just had, growing up in the 80s and 90s, we had two choices: Ticketron and Ticketmaster. Ticketron got bought out by somebody, but we had to go to like Macy's where the
Yes.
Ticketmaster was and stand in line and have somebody, put into a DOS system, and then they would kind of point to on a map where things were. And it was, that was awesome at the time because that was all we had. But the tickets for everything were only like 25 bucks. So wasn't paying $500 a ticket now. So
Yeah, Steve, you're right, because we had it. I don't remember. It was at Sears down in our neck
I
of the
remember
woods.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's such a dirty business. And someone finally, just like everything in this country, everything is being cataloged and controlled, right? For money and for politics. Everything. Remember, there was a knitting
well,
group 4 years
to be
ago, and the
fair,
woman, hold
the
on.
bands aren't doing this for free. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the ticket brokers if they are the original. I have an issue with the resellers, but not the original. Somebody's got to
Yeah,
do it. And the band doesn't want to have to deal with it. They just want to go out and play their show.
yeah, but hold on. Really, bands who like, for instance, I think it's The Cure and certain bands, you go to their website and they give you the tickets directly from the band to you. There's no
Yeah, but I'm
brokers,
saying
and they're 50
that's
bucks.
yeah, but that's some bands, and I don't
Right,
have
right,
an issue with that. But if you're a band, you're like, hey, I just want to play music. I don't want to get involved in the ticket
Right.
selling business. And a lot of the venues are actually owned by like Live Nation. And so if you
correct.
go to a big venue, that's if you're going to
And
play in front of 10,000 people or
and
5,000 people or
the
whatever.
genius thing about what you just said, Steve, explains why. Like I'm seeing Jeff Dunham on Thursday, tomorrow. But he's in this place called Clarksville, this small little place. Not small, but I don't think it's owned by, like you just said, it's not owned by one of these ticket, monopolies. And it's a dirty business. Uh, Give me another indulgence. I have a friend of mine, Matt. He used to manage Urge Overkill. Okay, and he said in the old days the band only got paid through and the label only got paid through record sales. He goes, now, like in the late 80s, they started forcing bands to give them a cut of their gate. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Wow.
So that's what the business has
Well,
changed.
and some of that could be fair if you're the record label and you say, hey, for instance, I'm going to spend a couple $1 million to produce your record. And then on top of that, you are going to go out and tour to support the album. And we're paying for if the label is paying for the tour and taking on a lot of that risk, you know,
Yeah,
why should they not be, why should they not
because
partake of it?
you're right theoretically, but Rick Beato, this guy is a genius talking about how all
He is.
how all this got ruined
Well,
because
I'm
you
not
have the
saying
same.
I'm not saying it has not been abused, but I'm saying if
It's
me as an
ruined.
entrepreneur says, I'm going to produce your record and then I'm going to pay to take you out on tour. Because guess what? If you don't, if you, Paul or Rodney does not, I'm paying you to go out on tour. And if we're not selling tickets, I'm probably going to have to pay you some sort of fee regardless. And I got to pay the fee, booking fees and all that stuff.
Well, I
So
agree
that's
with some of
fair.
that. Yeah, but what's not fair is when, and you could read stories about bands who got signed a developmental deal. They brought some jackass in who's going to turn 9 Inch Nails into Air Supply, right? Ruin their
That
sound.
would be a better band than
Okay.
The Nine Inch Nails.
Okay. Uh, and so this is why and this is all goes back to Rick Beato saying why all the bands sound alike. And the Grammys is garbage upon garbage upon
Well, I don't
garbage.
disagree with that. The
And
Grammys
that's
are,
all because of these record labels.
well, the Grammys are just an institution of the record labels to sell more records.
Yes.
Just like the Academy Awards, it was created to sell more tickets
Yeah.
from the movie
And I
industry.
don't
You're
think it's
so
working.
right.
Well,
And Rick
it's not.
Beato is a national treasure, by the way.
Yes,
Yes, he
he
is.
is. I'm just saying, like, I'm not sticking up for the record labels because they basically have very little power at this point. All I'm saying is, if I'm the entity taking the financial risk, I don't have a problem with them, getting a cut of the gate.
Oh God, it's such a I don't know.
Okay, well,
This is why
listen.
there's no originality. Go ahead, Kenny.
Okay, listen. Let's go back to when it was a simpler time. For those of you who saw Bohemian Rhapsody, remember in the early part where they were making records and selling and making no money and wondering why their manager was driving the nice car and they weren't. Yeah. Well, back in those days, those were my teen years. I can tell you, I went to a lot of rock concerts. I had a group of friends, and we would often go as a group, 5, 6, 8, didn't matter, and take one or two cars. The cost of the tickets, we're talking 74, 75, 76, that period. The cost of the tickets was single digits. Okay. The cost of the ticket to get in was single digits, $7, $8. All right, that was it. And the reason I have such a stark memory of that was it seemed staggering that they charged $10 for the black concert t-shirt that said Molly Hatchet across it, and it was a black t-shirt, not white, not blue, not red. It was black. Had to be. That was like you authentically, genuinely went to that concert if you were wearing that t-shirt. So we would buy the t-shirts typically $10, but the ticket investment was $7 or $8, something like that. And bands toured regularly. So if you lived in South Florida, where I was living, your opportunity to see rock bands, you never had to wait too long. Now, there were two main venues that we went to. Again, I grew up here in the Palm Beach area. The West Palm Beach Auditorium. Paul, what did that place sit? A couple of thousand?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
2,500, I think.
Yeah, small venue. And it's still there to this day, but it is now a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall place. It's no longer a concert venue. The other was known as
oh boy,
the Hollywood Sportatorium.
Oh,
they should make a documentary about this place. It's just legendary. Okay,
so and its crappiness
and its awfulness. Yeah. So, Steve, are you familiar at all with Hollywood, Florida? You know where it is?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you say Hollywood, people think of California.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
Hollywood, Florida.
For many years.
For those who don't know, Hollywood, Florida is sandwiched between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. It's not a huge place or anything, but it's been there a long time. And the main road where you get off is called Hollywood Boulevard. And back in those days, the 70s, you would take I-95 south to Hollywood Boulevard, which was about an hour. The speed limit was lower back then. And then you got off at Hollywood Boulevard and drove west to, if you believe in the flat earth, it's wherever the end of the earth was and you fell over. It seemed like that drive was eternal.
2 lanes.
2 lanes. 1 lane going west and the other one coming east. That was it. And the traffic would back up for hours. I mean, if a concert. Now, how much did that place sit? It was bigger, probably 4,000, 5,000.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
It was bigger than the auditorium. So if you've got 5,000 people going to a concert all at the same time on a 2-lane road, it was a nightmare. So what would be a 2-hour or less drive on a weekday or on a non-concert day? You've got to give yourself 3 hours or more to get there if you're going to the concert. And it was just going to inch along. It was, Steve, it was just torture waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no alternative. There was no other way to get there unless you owned a helicopter. Right?
How many miles off the interstate would you estimate that would be?
Like 20, maybe?
I'm going to say a little less than that, but here's the thing, Paul. I'm sure you know this. Now, it has developed all the way out to
Yeah.
there and even past. So
Well,
now it's like 3 lanes, 4 lanes driving out there. It's like it's an easy drive now, because I pulled it up one day, like last year. I pulled it up just to see where it was located. And there's a mall, a small like shopping center located now where the Sportatorium used to be. They
yes.
tore it down in the 80s. But it was the ugliest eyesore building. And I'm not even sure why it was built in the first place. I think that somebody in South
Tractor pulls.
Say it again.
Highlight.
Tractor pulls. That wasn't
No,
a highlight, but tractor pulls.
Yeah. No, I
Taking a
think that
guess.
I think somebody was floating the idea of having a hockey team back in those days. Seriously, it never happened, at least not then. But they built it and figure, hey, we can have hockey at that time of year and then have concerts and tractor pulls or whatever. Use it for a variety of things. And it never really happened because other than concerts, it was so impractical. In the middle of nowhere, getting there and getting back out was such a nightmare. And the parking lot was terrible. It was very little of it was paved. And it was full of
potholes. There was no security out there, and it
was no security. It was just awful. Okay. However, I saw a lot of concerts there, so it does hold a certain nostalgia for me, even though I would never want to go back. So if you Google Hollywood Sportatorium and pull it up, there are pictures available on Google Images.
Yeah.
And it was such an ugly. Oh my God, who thought this was a good idea? But all of the great, especially late 70s bands, Boston, Doobie Brothers, Kansas. I saw them all out there. Yeah, Styx. I saw them all out there. And it was just the greatest time. You know, we'd make the drive. We'd have so much fun, buy our black T-shirts and drive back. So it was quite an experience. Again, single digits for the ticket, and $10 for the T-shirt, and then whatever you spent for gas. So every person was going to come in probably a little over $20. Oh, we would buy beer too, you know. So say $25 you were going to spend altogether.
Well,
those are the days.
Two things. The Rudy Sarzo talks about it near the end of his book. He wrote about Ozzy Osbourne, and I read him as the Hollywood Sportatorium. Like no one spelled it. Yeah, I'm like, what's the Sportatorium? Like flowers and spores. And I think I told you once on the show already, me and Rebecca saw Rush, my sister, on the Signals tour. So that'd have been 82, let's say.
Yeah.
And I got out there and I said, I'm going to either go with that 4-hour thing going home or I'm going to blow my brains out. So I actually looked at my sister and I said, what do you want to do? She goes, go west. I'm like, okay. So we drive for like 30 minutes west on that road. Okay. And there's an Indian reservation, a Native American reservation.
Yeah, I think I told you I DJ'd out there once.
Yeah. So I get out there and I said, and the guy was a Native American, full, like he got a gun and everything. I said, sir, we went to this concert and he goes, yeah, you could go through. I'm like, are you okay? Is this sure? He goes, yes, sir. And then when we got past the gate, he shut the gate back.
Oh, there was a gate. Okay.
Yeah, there's a gate. Yeah.
Oh, wow. He shut the gate back, and I went, okay, God, thank you for your help, God. And we drove up, and I didn't have no Google. I didn't have no maps, nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I figured out how to get back to West Palm. I think I went all the way up to Glades Road, I think, is where I got back going east again.
Oh, okay.
Well, did you save any time?
Probably
yes,
not.
plus I was moving.
Well, yeah, so
that's all I cared about.
That's the thing. Like, I think I would rather spend an hour more time if I'm actually moving.
That's the thing. If you're moving, you can keep your sanity. When you're not moving, your head just explodes.
Yes, and remember, there's no gas stations out there. I think I had a gun in my dad's truck. So if we'd have gotten a tire, bad guys come out. There's gators. You know, this is South Florida. So anyway, that place. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, but let me go ahead and mention the West Palm Beach Auditorium, because that's where I saw my very first concert in 1975, Bachman Turner Overdrive. And they put on a great show. It was awesome. The warm-up band, it was a band called Point Blank, who, by the way, Southern rockers, who, by the way, made a few albums, even though they never really hit the big time or anything. But, you know, at least it was somebody that we had heard of. So, and I saw at least, I'm not going to say 10, probably 6 or 8 concerts there at the Auditorium, West Palm Beach. I definitely saw Blue Oyster Cult there. Steve, it's not a huge place. And the day after Blue Oyster Cult, I was deaf, literally deaf. Couldn't hear a thing.
I bring earplugs now to every concert.
He's smart. Steve, I think I've taken you by there. The nickname for it, when they first built it in the late 50s, it leaked a lot. So they call it the leaky teepee.
Teepee, right.
So
because it's shaped kind of like a teepee that's a little flat, you know.
But yeah, I saw 1980, my second concert was AC/DC there. The Back in Black tour was there.
Okay.
Wow. Do you remember
Back in Black? Okay, all right.
Do you remember who the opener was?
No, it might have been like, I don't know. Not Vanilla Fudge. Not that. It was somebody. It was like maybe Foghat. Because Foghat played at the West Palm Beach Auditorium 742,000 times.
Yeah,
that's the exact number.
They were in South Florida a lot. And so were some of the Southern rock bands. I mean, Molly Hatchet, literally, not 75 or 76, but by 78, they were playing so regularly at different venues in South Florida that you could see them anytime you wanted to.
Yeah, they offered
to
rename West Palm Beach Molly Hatchetville, but they said, nah, it's okay. I'm kidding.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve. Your turn.
My first concert was, it was Robert Plant on the Fate of Nations tour. So I think this was 93 or 94. I can't remember
oh my God.
The year.
Wow.
It was in Cleveland, and in the auditorium held about maybe 8 to 10,000 people.
Is that where the Cavs played?
No, they played in the old dump called the Richfield Coliseum, which was way out in the middle of nowhere. Very similar to the venue down the Sportatorium.
No, call it Sportatorium.
Right.
But I just remember, so they had the opener, Cry of Love, which was kind of a Southern rock.
Yeah, you turned me on to them.
We talked about them, yeah.
Yeah, great album. And but I just remember it being so loud that I was like, God, can somebody turn the music?
Yeah, it's not enjoyable. It's so loud, it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Put it down a bit.
And so, I don't know if musicians back in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s wore earplugs, but I know a lot of them, some of them do now. And I just could not imagine going on stage and playing 60 shows a year and not having hearing damage.
Yeah,
because it is just so loud. And I know I sound like an old man at this point, but
you're right.
At some point, it's just not enjoyable when it's too loud.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was a great show, and so Robert Plant, and then you guys are gonna kind of laugh at this one. I think my second concert was Meatloaf.
Nothing wrong with Meatloaf.
No, I was always a fan. And
then it was after that, it was Pantera and the Eagles, and then I forget everything else as far as the order. But so,
okay,
that's
Hey, Paul, quick question. You mentioned Bass and Ticketmasters and all that. In the 70s, wasn't Cellar Door the ticket?
They were a promoter. They weren't the ticket, because my sister worked there.
I remember when you would hear the ads on
Cellar
radio,
Door
they would see Cellar Door presents, and I would always go, what exactly does Cellar Door do? I love that name.
Did you guys ever hear of Belkin? Because most of the concerts produced up in Cleveland in northern Ohio were put on by Belkin and Budweiser. So Belkin was the promoter, and Budweiser, I'm sure, was just paying money to have it.
Well, you both are getting into an interesting territory, because this is what Peter Grant, Led Zeppelin's legendary manager, is a professional wrestler, is a very large man. He would go in the old days, these promoters and venue, they would tell you what you were going to do, right?
Oh, yeah.
He says, Led Zeppelin, we tell you how much money we're getting. You don't tell us. We tell you.
Well,
and he was the first guy who, other than Elvis, set Elvis aside, he was the guy who just crushed people because he had to.
Well, yeah. Well, Led Zeppelin was Led Zeppelin, so they had the ability.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying. But no one had the balls or the wherewithal or the guts to try it.
Yeah.
It,
Well,
go ahead.
like what I had heard when Guns N' Roses got together for the their reunion shows back in I think it was 2016, 2017. Whatever, it wasn't GNR that really put that on. I mean, it was a concert promoter who basically said, "We will, we're going to pay you." I think it was $1 million a show or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds
And
right.
so they're paying that if the and I don't
Take
know
it or
what they're
leave it.
making in ticket sales, but that's that's Guns N' Roses getting a flat fee regardless of how many tickets they sell and at what price. So a lot of that's just driven not by the band, but it's by the promoter. And that's I think where it's gotten outrageous because if you go see classic rock acts now that are in high demand, like if you go see the Eagles, which now there's Don Henley is the only original member still playing with the band because they have a residency in Vegas. I thought about going, but like the cheapest tickets are like $1,000.
Oh,
And
killing
as
me.
much as I love the Eagles, I'm like, I'm really paying to see Don Henley
One guy.
and Joe Walsh is still with him, but he's not one of the original members. But
Right,
you
right.
can count him as an original, if you want to. But still, that's the cheapest tickets to get in were like $1,000. And so
Wow.
the Eagles have always been when I've been really high. When I first saw them back in like the 94, 95. I think I paid 175 or $200 for a ticket, and I thought, okay, this I'll never pay that much money for a ticket
Right,
That's what you
ever
thought.
again,
right.
never again. And the last show I went to was Jeff Lynne's Electric Light Orchestra. I was in about the 10th row, right at center stage, and I paid $975, and I
Oh
just
my God, Steve.
but
Wow.
for me it was. I,
I'm not judging you.
Yeah, for me it was yeah, I love ELO and it was like and that's his
Yellow is
farewell
awesome.
tour. I'm like, I'll never see him again, but I also said to myself, I'm never doing this ever again.
Right,
Like
right,
I'm out. Like I want my bands to just be club level acts so I can pay $20 to go see them
right.
and have a very intimate show.
Yeah,
So I'm kind of over the whole concert and large venue.
right. And by the way, Paul and I saw a World Series game 20 years ago for $100 each. That's what the tickets
Oh,
were, $100 each.
Yep.
Yeah.
was that the Marlins?
Yes,
Marlins and the Cleveland Indians.
correct.
Well, that would have been like 1997.
97. Yeah,
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 almost
No,
30
no,
years ago.
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I remember when
I,
they lost.
I know. I actually felt bad for Cleveland, to be completely honest, because I was like, the number of near hits, not near misses, but near
yes,
hits they've had. You're like, oh
yeah,
my God, this is.
yeah,
And then I forced Kitty to go see a hockey game down, and
yeah,
it was great because we're down there. It was during the Panther fever, so I'm getting ready
yeah.
to argue, haggle, and this hottest Cuban police officer comes up behind me and goes, "Sir, it's illegal to do that here." I'm like, "I'm sorry, officer, don't arrest me." She goes, "No, you need to go across the street." So
Right.
me and I gave the guy the money, and you and I got as a Panther pack with the upper row.
Yeah.
We go to this Kenny's butt cheeks, hit the seat. Billy Lindsay scores
Within
like
seconds of
seconds.
the opening face-off, within seconds, the Panthers scored, and we had
I look at
just
him.
walked in.
I said, "You realize this is a 1 in a million thing you just
Right.
saw?" And he's like,
Right.
"Yeah, okay." Like you had no idea of the gravity of it until that.
Right. No. Plus, they're playing Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and it was
Oh, that's right.
Mario Lemieux's last game. So as the clock was ticking down to 0, the Penguins had pulled their goalie, and the Panthers hit one of those full-length
Oh
courts, and it
yeah.
went
Oh,
in. Yeah. So I got to see some cool stuff that night. My one
and
hockey
then
game.
and that's when they threw the rats on the field on the ice,
I,
and so yeah,
I-
it's
well, I try to go to at least one hockey game a year, but this going back to the ticket prices, like everything is just so expensive, and
yes.
and again with the fees, it's 200 for a ticket, $75 for the $75 fee for the ticket fee and plus tax. I'm like $300, and I'm like I'll just sit at home and watch it on TV for free.
I
Right.
I'm
Right.
Steve, answer this question because I know you probably thought about this a little bit more than I have. In the old days, 5 years ago, before this tickets electronically, and there was
Well, that's been
predominantly
going
ran
on
by
for more
black
than
men,
20 years, but
who's street hustlers, who I think is awesome what they do. They get money and sell it and make money, and I'm happy for them. You can't do that now.
you can't do it.
It's a monopoly.
I would say that kind of stopped about, yeah, 5 or 6 years ago because you used to
Yeah,
be able to go down. I work right next to Coors Field, the baseball stadium. You'd always see people selling tickets, and there still are a little bit. There is a little bit, but for the most part, all that takes place online now. People just will
Right.
go on buy there's bots that go on and buy all the tickets up for
yes,
concerts, not necessarily for
Right.
baseball,
Right.
and then it's immediately you go on there within a minute and it's already on there as a resell. And I'm like, that is infuriating.
yeah.
And some of the sites are trying to get around that by not allowing reselling because it's all electronic now. And so like if you're the original account holder, you can't transfer it. So some of them have been able to do that, but some still allow for it. So
Hey guys,
it's
listen, we were down to our last couple of minutes. So if you got any final thoughts on this, let's do it. Also, we mentioned the Grammys earlier. So the Grammys were several days ago, Sunday or Monday, whatever day it was.
Yeah,
I didn't
Sunday, I
watch it,
think.
haven't watched it probably since the 80s. But if anybody wanted to say anything about that, this is a good time.
Well, I was just Steven, I mean, none of us watch it, none of us care. That all the bands, they just sound like noise to me. Like I was listening to Jim Croce, as I do almost every day, this morning. I'm like, that's gone. That's gone.
It's
That's gone.
done. It's
I
over.
I don't know
Go ahead, Steve.
anybody that watches the Grammys. I don't know anybody that ever has watched it. And if somebody tells me that they are a Grammy Award winning artist, that means absolutely nothing to me. In fact, it probably makes me less
Less
incentivized
likely to
to
listen.
listen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
because I
Right.
know that it's trash. And that's not just me saying, being anti-establishment.
Being a
We
hater,
know, yeah, we just know what the Grammys are,
you know
and
how it
it's
works.
a corporate, kind of political event, and that's
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's not about the music.
Like Steve and I introduced Steve to two of my buddies. They were in this band originally called My Evolution in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Then they switched their name to Nine Electric. These guys are phenomenal, phenomenal musicians. And they're the coolest guys. And I feel so bad for them. They're having like 100 people come to and you're like, my God. And then you get all these people. I'm not going to start bashing people, but I can if you want me to. Those guys and their farts have more talent than all these people Taylor Swift put together. And it just makes you want to go on a rampage.
Yeah.
And no one
I,
cares.
I don't know how musicians in the future are going to make it
They're not.
because 1% is going to make 99% of the money, and
Yes,
99% are never going to make anything.
that is
And the
correct.
99% are probably the more talented. And with
Yeah.
streaming, it's impossible. I just don't see how. And Hollywood is a completely separate subject, but like with AI, in 20 years, like the movie business is not going to be around.
Right.
It will look drastically different, and
Well,
music probably will be the same way because of AI.
yeah, let me mention this really quick, and we're just about out of time. This is several weeks ago. I saw a video on YouTube, and it was kind of like a 60s female R&B group. It was a name I had never heard of. And Steve, I'm a 60s dude. I know all the music from the
He
60s. I'm
does.
like, it's not possible that I could have never heard of this band. And I'm playing the song, and it's catchy, and I kind of like it, but musically, it sounds way more contemporary. And I started reading the comments, and people are saying, just ignore this. It's AI. And I go, oh my God. The AI invented the band and wrote the song and everything, created the music. And it had a real 60s vibe, even though it didn't sound authentic 60s. So AI is now doing
Well,
literally everything.
that's what I want to do as a test. I know we got a minute here, but
Yeah.
I want to create, and I'm working on creating a band with a name, and it's going to be a metal band, and everything's going to be AI, and I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah,
You
do it.
should.
Okay, guys, we have to wrap it up. We're about to tick out. So this is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
Yes, if you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.